Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, but not the mostest hostess of all time. That honor goes to our main subject tonight. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this ode to Mad Frank. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Tucker, let me tell you a story about when I was a kid, okay? My friend Andrew and his mom and dad said, hey, would you like to go down to the lake with us? And I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. I said, well, we have friends. We're going to go to their lake place. So we pack up. It's like an hour and a half drive, and we go to this beautiful lake cabin, like the old kind of rustic lake cabin, and it's way up on this hill that leads down to the lake. So over millions of years, this lake has eroded itself down. And they're like, hi, and I recognize the woman who owns the lake cabin because I'm pretty sure she was a teacher. And I'm like, well, that would make sense. That's why Andrew's mom knows her, because Andrew's mom was in education. And then the husband comes out, and there's something about the husband I recognize, but not fully. And they're like, hey, guys, you guys want to use the boat? I'm like, yeah, that's awesome, because I had just gotten my boater's license, which was awesome, from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
What age are you again?
I want to say like 13, maybe 14.
Okay, so boater's license before driver's license.
Right. In fact, like maybe 12 even.
Okay.
Right? Like you're young when you can get your boater's license. And the guy goes, hey, just so you know, because of erosion, there's a no wake law on this lake. So you can't be going fast enough to create a wake and like big waves.
Okay.
I had never been on a lake like that before. But it's an old fishing boat, like where you're holding onto the motor and like, brrr, but that means the max you can go is like 5 miles an hour. Okay. And so Andrew and I go and we tour around the lake and we spend like an hour just kind of, farting around. We go back and we go up and we have this delightful dinner. I remember specifically it was a goulash type meal. Have you ever had goulash?
I've heard the word and now I can't even picture what
ground
it looks like.
Beef, tomatoes, like a noodle,
Okay.
It just goulash.
Sounds like a casserole almost.
It's very similar, but it's the noodles I think are the thing that really.
It
set
does
it apart.
sound like a pile of ingredients.
It is
like you threw a bunch of stuff together. There's no real form to it.
It's got a very Slavic kind of feel to it, right? And some people like put cheese over the top of it, and some people just do all different types of. Sometimes it's more soupy. This one I remember, like you scooped it, you put it on your plate.
I just think there's a better word than goulash because it doesn't sound good to me. But let's keep going.
Now it's perfect because this leads into the purpose of this story. I'm not just saying it because I wanted to tell you about an afternoon I spent in the lakes area. So now it's like more towards evening, and at this point it's like, let's go. But the adults are having fun, and they opened a bottle of wine. I think it was like a Chianti because it had like the little basket on the bottle. And they're like, well, you guys want to go to the TV and watch something? And this is like, there's no TV reception because we're in the middle of lakes country, but they've got all these VHS tapes. So I pop in one of the VHS tapes and it's an episode of Mad Frank Presents. Now, for those of you who don't know, Mad Frank Presents was on KVRR in Fargo, North Dakota, and it was a late night horror host. And it was a local guy who put on this like ghoulish makeup, white paint and black around the eyes, and wore these white gloves and an old coat, and had this like hat, like a very specific hat, and had this like kind of thing. Mrs. Brisby, I think, was the name of maybe the little doll that he had. And then there was a cavalcade of characters that came in and helped with the horror show. And so he would cue up, a really schlocky 60s horror movie. And then they would play that and it would be interspersed. It had a great opening that was filmed around like the streets of Fargo of him going to his crypt, which is like, oh, I could tell this is the outside of the KVRR building. So Andrew really had never seen one of those. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And it was on at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, it was filler programming on KVRR. And as a kid, I never watched it consistently, but I remember there was a place called Box Office Video, which is where like Dwayne's House of Pizza on University is. It was right next to there. And this was the first video rental club where you didn't pay per video. What you did is you paid a monthly fee, and then you could take one video out at a time. Okay. And so they had a signed photo of Mad Frank hanging behind the desk, and I used to think that that was so cool. So we watch a couple of these, and we're not really watching for the movies. We're fast forwarding because each episode, not only does it get introduced by Mad Frank, but then there's something going on. So there's one time where like Mad Frank is trying to plan a birthday party. And there's one time where Mad Frank has misplaced a corpse somewhere and, needs to get these other people. So we're really only watching for these like intros and outros. And we watch like 4 of them. And I'm like, these people have all of the Mad Frank tapes. That's weird. Then I find out this was the Dvoracek household. I was actually in Mad Frank's house. And so then when when Andrew was like, yeah, he is this guy. That's him. He's Mad Frank. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and I totally froze up because I felt like I was in the looking into the face of greatness. Now this, okay, just to put into context, this is like 1996, maybe like 96-ish. Fast forward to 2025, and Mad Frank passes. There was a great documentary that came out about Mad Frank 7-8 years ago. And all the living members of Mad Frank, and I used to work, well, 2 of them. A guy named James Erickson, who worked here at the station, was sort of like this helpless nerd character who worked at the station that Mad Frank was making these like movies at, like in the universe of Mad Frank. Mm-hmm. And so, and James just happened to be a guy who was a nerd who worked at this place, who happened to be, like they're like, hey, will you play yourself essentially and be in this thing where like you're covered in tape reel and stuff like that. And then Steve Poitras also did some work on it. I think at one point or another. But the best was Marty Jonason played like an Igor character,
also a local legend.
And so, and amongst other people. And so this documentary, I think they had to travel to like 5 states to interview people who had been a part of Mad Frank. So you think, oh, well, this is just a fun little thing that's here. Oh, no, my friends. No. Mad Frank ends up becoming internationally known because people bootleg these tapes and they send them to each other. This is an era where Joe Bob Riggs, right? Like in his horror movie host, Elvira, all of these horror host shows become massively successful. And Mad Frank becomes one of the kings.
Yeah, and a part of that is because of the fact, just as a side note, that there is such a massive library of horror and sci-fi and schlocky movies that exist in the public domain. So they had this library that you could always play, late at night, like on public access TV and stuff. So it kind of the existence of that kind of media birthed this sort of this character type.
And he was like, this show ran from 85 to 95.
Oh yeah.
It was a long time. So, okay, I want to read a little piece of his obituary for you. So here we go. So he just an interesting guy, right? So his obituary is Delray, Mad Frank in quotes, Dvoracek, and his photo that they put in the program is his Mad Frank promotional photo.
Yes.
Which is just fantastic, isn't it? So, Delray Kent Dvoracek, born on his parents' farm on March 11th, 1940, near Tyndall, South Dakota. He attended this elementary school. After graduation, he entered the Air Force, spending 3 months in Texas, then off to Monterey, California for 9 months, where he learned the Russian language. A test given by military indicated that Del had the natural ability to learn languages. He was sent to Trabzon, Turkey for 1 year as a spy in the sky, where he would listen and interpret Russians. Ooh. Right? He loved that job because he enjoyed flying and appreciated the camaraderie of his fellow officers. While he was there, he got word that his father had died unexpectedly at the age of 51. Sadly, he did not make it home in time for the funeral and lamented that for many years. He flew back to Turkey and later was stationed in Germany, where he learned the German language. He speaks German, Russian, English at this point. When his military career ended, he attended Augustana College, graduating with a BA degree in German with minors in art, theater, and biology. While in college, he met Verlene Nelson, and they were married June 24th, 1967. Dell gets a master's degree in German at the University of Nebraska. During the summers, he attended the University of Minnesota, received a PhD, all but the dissertation, in foreign language education. He taught German at MSUM and Russian at Concordia. Two different colleges, right? When his teaching career ended, he went to work for Silverline Boat Company and then started his own advertising agency called Dell Agency and Associates. His best account was Hornbacher's, designing the weekly ads and jingle that he wrote. In the evenings, he also taught advertising classes at MSUM. In 1985 to 1995, he was Mad Frank and introduced spooky movies on KVRR TV every Saturday night. He enjoyed using his drama and writing skills as he prepared for the show. On Wednesday night, the crew of Mad Frank, which included Marty Jonason, Judy Ray, Dave Prentice, Bill Flint, and James Erickson, wrote the script for the upcoming movie. It was so much fun to listen to them as they rehearsed for the show and designed their props. Another spooky movie hostess was emerging in 1981 from California, and the show was called Elvira's Movie Macabre and continued until 1986. There were two distinct differences between Elvira and Mad Frank. She probably had a lot more money, and she had cleavage. How many obituaries use the word cleavage? Right? This is a guy who saw a need. They just needed to fill this thing, right? And he did it. And they had a lot of fun doing it. And when people tell you that, oh, we can't do this because we don't have the money for it. Oh, we can't do this. This thing was less than a shoestring budget. They literally were like, you don't get any money for this. I don't think any of these people made $1 off of it.
Oh, no. And they didn't have cameras in their pockets.
No.
I'll tell you that much.
Right? And so they are filming this thing on, they're literally taking a corner of whatever the studio is, having to probably set up their set every single time, move pieces down. They're editing it themselves.
Everything's on VHS tape, so it's deck to deck. Because if they stopped the show in '95, then they were still doing deck to deck. Like that. I think the iMac comes out in '97.
Right. Oh yeah. This is definitely
iMovie
linear
comes
editing.
Out 98 maybe. 98, 99, I think is when iMovie comes out.
I mean, there's a real world where they're not even using VHS to tape this in
at least at the beginning.
right?
At the beginning, for sure. It's probably quarter inch or something.
Right. Exactly. So Mad Frank becomes a household name around here for sure. And he, makes these fun appearances and goes all over the place. But there is something about Matt, there's a picture of him sitting at the Wurlitzer. I remember, Dvoracek was able to make it to the screening of this documentary. And I loved, the documentary was great. These people talking about this small time in their lives. And it sort of reminds me a little bit of you. Do you remember when you were doing I don't know, did you guys start your own theater company, but you did the complete works of William Shakespeare Abridged?
Yep.
You did a couple other little shows, right?
I think we just did that. We only ever did that show.
But you were working constantly with those same crew of people.
Because then they ended up they sort of melding into Theater B. That was called the Mostly Men Troupe, which was just a gag name. It was supposed to be stupid. That was the Mostly Men Troupe. I was just looking at our some still photos of us rehearsing that way back in the day. I had a head full of hair and baggy cargo pants.
Baggy cargo pants. And I bet you think back on that fondly.
Yeah,
I bet you think back you know what? We didn't do it. We ate at Applebee's every night.
Yep.
We didn't have anything to do the show, but God, we had fun.
The best part about making AJ Goes to the Dog Park for me was it brought back all those feelings of making stuff with your friends. That was always the most fun thing. That's why I loved video production at Trollwood, because you were just making goofy stuff with your friends. You could show people at the end of every week. It was a labor of love. It wasn't ubiquitous, right? You really had to love the thing to seek it out. It was hard. That's the best feeling.
I love when you feel that nostalgic feeling and it rushes back, a friend who you haven't talked to in a long time, and you just immediately get back into the swing of things.
I was just telling you about this. I just visited my elementary school.
Yeah.
Last week. So Horseman Elementary is going to be torn down next summer. And so they put a small article in the paper that let people know from 6 to 7 on this particular Tuesday, if you want, you can do a self-guided tour of the school. So I went, and the place was packed with people. It was great to see all these people there. But I had never in my life been actually hit with nostalgia, like physically, like felt bowled over and completely overwhelmed. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. So when I look at things like Mad Frank too, I didn't watch Mad Frank, but I saw Mad Frank promos all the time.
All the time.
And so when I look at that, when I look at old VHS promos and stuff, it just brings me back to a time and a place.
You can find a ton of these on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to play the intro just to kind of get some fun. And so this will take us back to another era for sure.
This is KVRR Channel 15, Fargo-Moorhead, and KJRR Channel 7, Jamestown, your Fox stations.
Mad Frank presents, brought to you in part by Hornbachers, West Acres, and FM Exhaust.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mad Frank, and welcome to Mad Frank Presents. Tonight's movie is for gardeners and for anyone else that's interested in man-eating plants. Let me hang up my cape, and we'll talk about it. Hi, Harvey.
I'm Mad Frank, so tonight's movie is for gardeners.
That's right.
I like vegetables, but vegetables don't like me.
Well, that's not the case with tonight's film. You can watch right from over here.
It's just the right amount of schlock.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I love it. I love it so much.
As we were watching that, I was thinking too, you can't see it when you're just hearing the pod, but each of those dun, 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 his footsteps are matching up with it pretty closely. And that was, being used in 93, probably made even earlier than that.
I think the intro stayed the same from the very beginning.
So the amount of time it would have taken to try to time up those steps going down the stairs to the dun, 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 dun. I also love the shout outs for, Hornbachers and West Acres
and FM
Exhaust. It is, brought to you in part by, so like, I wonder what did they submit? Like, did they really pay $25 to have Hornbachers up there? Or was it just more like Delray's like, hey, hook me up with some free hot dogs?
Well, I mean,
he was doing advertising for them, right?
Yeah, so like, I imagine they paid an actual sponsorship for it. Now, that being said, it's the glory days of that. That's the only shout out they get, right? Like right there, they got to be a part of like the intro. It's not like it's like, welcome to Mad Frank Presents. And I'm going to stop and get myself one of those delicious rotisserie chickens from Hornbachers.
It wasn't even their logo. It was like Helvetica.
Yep. This kind of dives into the amount of want and expectation in modern day advertising. Like, no, I'm not just going to sponsor a show. I also want to have my branding included in it, and I need to be all over it. I need to be in the bottom third. It drives me bonkers how people just don't sponsor stuff because it's important that this thing exists. And I will say this, Hornbachers takes a risk on this. They get only a mention at the beginning, and here we are 23 years later
true.
talking about the Hornbacher sponsorship on this show.
That's true.
And so if you are someone who handles advertising for your company, it's time to really think about what is worthwhile. Because you know what? If they had done a big splashy logo and like something at the beginning, like where it's like Hornbacher's your 24-hour food and more store, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about it as much because now you're detracting from me being able to get into the fun of it.
Everyone thinks about Jared from Subway.
Everyone thinks about Jared from Subway in the worst possible ways. Not because of his big pants, not anymore. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. For a while, I was going to start a horror movie thing where I introduced movies that were scary, and then it turns out that people don't like Count Butkins